actual documented stories and sightings of Melonheads.
Jesus, Jake, that's a bit strong. They are ill children. So in this video, Jake Bruce, aka Jake the Ghost Hunter, is investigating the tragic tales of children. There's another word in front of children that I can't say on YouTube in the first couple of minutes, so it begins with A, ends in D, or E. And to ensure that these A-worded children get the dignity and respect that they deserve, he refers to them as, big ass heads. And he compares their medical condition to that of an Airheads advert. And then he throws some sweets or candy out into the darkness for these children, and then asks what's probably an AI-run ghost hunting app, are there any ghosts? The whole thing is ridiculous, and I've looked into the history, and is he messed up? He's got everything wrong, but some things he's like, yeah, there's no proof of this when there is, but there is proof of that when there's not. Bear with me. Jake promises us documented stories. He also promises confirmed sightings and a real historical investigation. Because Jake seems to be trying to recreate, these ghost photographs. I'm going to go to these locations and take these photographs. I'm going to try and debunk this, debunk that. And the more I'm looking at him trying to debunk things, I'm like, you turned a corner here. But no, he hasn't. One of the biggest issues with this is one of Jake's witnesses, well, she didn't tell the story that Jake attributes to her. He also makes claims about a non-existent doctor. This doctor never existed. This doctor is not real. This doctor provably existed because I found it. And where did I find this? How did I find this information? A local newspaper interview with that doctor's real family. Oh, Jake, you've really gone and fucked up. So tonight we're not hunting what Jake refers to as melonheads for deformed children. I'm hunting for something far more substantial. Citations. And unlike Jake's ghosts, some of mine are actually going to appear.
Ghost children with abnormally large heads have been seen wandering these woods in Ohio. Locals call these creatures the Melonheads due to their disturbingly large heads. And over the last 60 years, these creepy kids have been spotted over and over again. However, some say that they are not children at all, but are in fact some sort of cannibalistic creatures. Others say that they are angry spirits of children abused by a mad scientist. But what's actually going on in these woods?
So Jake introduces the Melonheads as ghostly or feral children that were abused by a mad scientist called Dr. Crow. And according to the legend, Crow operated an orphanage or medical facility after the Second World War, and he injected fluid into children's brains, and he was eventually killed when the children revolted and burned the building down. And as folklore, that is the recognised tale. That is the recognised version of the story. The important words here are folklore. Because this isn't a documented account of abused children. This is an urban legend with, well, multiple contradictions and contradictory versions of each other. In one version, Dr. Crow is a very compassionate man who cares for children with hydrocephalus, and he dies naturally. In the other version, he deliberately just experiments on them until they revolt and kill him and burn everything. In another version, the children kill the doctor after the death of his wife. And in some versions, it's got the hills have eyes or wrong turn written all over it. The children supposedly survive in the forest, turn feral, reproduce, and then become cannibalistic creatures, and they'll also feed on wild animals. They don't stop there though. Apparently they'll go after livestock and missing children. Yep, this got dark quick, didn't it? They're all different versions of the same campfire story, and campfire stories are just that, campfire stories, tales to scare you in the dark. But this guy's investigating them and trying to find the fact behind them and get some things more than just a little wrong. And Jake doesn't establish which version of which of these three different tales he's actually investigating. He doesn't investigate where any of these tales originated, or whether any of it's actually historically possible at all. Instead, he gives us three different theories.
There's three leading theories as to what these kids can be. Theory number one is that they are literally the physical kids who were abused by Dr. Crow, and they now live in these woods. That one doesn't make much sense, because if it started in World War II, first of all, they wouldn't be kids anymore.
Unless they decided to just like repopulate in like a cave.
In a cave? In a cave? I don't know, it doesn't make much sense to me, because how would you be a kid since World War II? That's like almost 100 years at this point. So these kids would be like 90 years old at least. Theory number 2 is that they're not the physical kids, but that they are the ghosts of the kids who were abused by Dr. Crow, which makes a lot more sense to me, and I'm a ghost hunter, so I have all the ghost hunting equipment, so that's kind of what I'm gonna be testing tonight. Like, final theory is that they are some type of cryptid or even like an alien type creature that live in Ohio, which makes sense because there is a lot of cryptids here. There's Frogman, there's like different Bigfoot, like orange eyes. Ohio is fucked, y'all.
So the first theory is that the children survived in the woods and now they're like nearly 100 years old or potentially 100 years old running around eating children and babies, and Jake, to his credit, dismisses this possibility until his partner stupidly says maybe they reproduced in caves. So within 3 minutes, this historical, these are his words, historical investigation posed an undiscovered breeding population of deformed cannibal children now living about 30 miles outside of Cleveland. David Attenborough has been notified. Jake, here we view Jake. Look at the 1980s serial killer occultist glasses. Jake is about to go searching for the ghosts of children that don't exist. What a twat. The second theory is that these children are now ghosts, and because Jake is a ghost hunter, that's the answer. That's the theory that old Jakey boy thinks makes more sense. Even the interbreeding one makes more sense than that. He doesn't decide this because he's found records of dead children. He doesn't do this because he's actually located the burned orphanage. And he doesn't do this because he's actually established that anybody, whatsoever, at all, was actually murdered. Makes the most sense because he's got the ghost hunting equipment to prove it. No, you don't. You've got flawed devices, Jakey Poors. That would be like me going to Scotland to find the Loch Ness Monster and then saying, ooh, the Loch Ness Monster has a screw loose. And the proof is, I've got a screwdriver. So Jake travels to what he believes to be the legendary Crybaby Bridge. Ooh.
Location that we will visit to attempt to find these creatures is a bridge that is known to locals as Crybaby Bridge. According to local lore, if you park your car halfway on the bridge, roll down your windows, and turn your headlights off, you will hear the sound of water rushing below you. However, after a few minutes, you will begin to hear the eerie and unmistakable sounds of children crying and giggling. Not only that, but you will also see glowing red eyes in the woods. These are thought to be the eyes and the crying of the once abused Melonheads. I know this looks like a trail, but this is Weissner Road, guys. This is where the Melonheads have been seen. So, oh, look. Horse tracks.
Yeah,
see them all?
Yeah, horse trail.
Because these are now horse trails. There it is, Lex, look at that.
Shit.
So the original bridge, I think, washed away in a flood and they rebuilt it. So that's why this looks like how it is now. But this is, I think this is the real Crybaby Bridge. I think we actually found it.
I think it is.
According to the story, you're supposed to just park your car, which we don't have, so we'll park.
Notice the language that Jake is using there. I think this is the real location. The original bridge, I think, washed away. I think we've actually found it. I think is doing all the structural work here, and if he does any more of this, he's gonna need planning permission. I'll tell you what he doesn't have is a historical map. He's got no sources that he puts up on screen or holds up in his hand to say, you know, this is the bridge, confirming that this is the exact reconstructed bridge. So he doesn't even know himself if he is on the right bridge connected to the story of the children. But listen to what he says. The testable claim here should be that you drive onto this bridge, roll down your windows and you can hear water, and then giggling, then you see red eyes. You have to have a vehicle to experience this, and he's walking on foot because you can no longer drive over it. You can't test the claim.
You here? We're not hearing anything. I don't see any footprints. I don't hear any kids in the woods. I'm going to get out the REM pod, which is a piece of paranormal equipment. And the way it works is if anything comes up and touches this, like a ghost or whatever, or a kid with a big ass head, then we'll know. Okay, yo, it's going off.
It's calibrating because you've just put it on the ground and then walk towards it and set it off. And obviously he's just described one of these children as large-assed head. Respectful.
It's because you insulted him.
I'm sorry. Can you show us that you're real by touching that or knocking on this bridge? If I hear that, we are running.
We're running.
As fast as we fucking can. Can you touch the red light on the bridge for me? If you are one of the children that was in the orphanage near here and Dr. Crow did really bad things to you, and now your head looks like the Airhead commercial.
So he says, if you're one of the children that was in the orphanage near here and Dr. Crow did really bad things to you, and now you look like the Airhead commercial, and shows a clip of the commercial with the balloon blowing up. We'll take away the fact that he's being really insensitive here, and we will add that Jake hasn't even established that this orphanage existed, and if it does exist, he hasn't established that it existed anywhere near this bridge. He's not established that the experiments actually happened, and he hasn't identified a single child that has lived or died near there. Yet, he is addressing supposedly abused, deformed children as though the legend is actually documented history. And he's mocking the real physical condition in which this legend is based. Classy. Then he produces sweets to attract the children.
Speaking of Airheads, guys, I have an experiment, and I think this is gonna work. What do kids like?
Candy.
And what candy has the commercial where when you eat it, your head turns into a freaking balloon? Airheads, baby! And we're gonna see if this can attract any of the kids, and maybe we can get any activity. I think it's a good idea. Which one should we do first? Oh, the bites? Go with the bites. Hey, kids. Oh, shit. Oh, fuck. Oh, my bad. Here you go.
Here, Melonhead.
Yeah, here, Melonhead. Yummy.
To kids like candy, here Melonhead, yummy. Because nothing shows respect quite like throwing sweets into the forest or into the road directly in front of you, whilst shouting a disability-inspired nickname. If Jake genuinely believes that these disabled, abused children actually existed, then this is grotesque. And if he doesn't believe it, then children and their alleged suffering are props for him doing a little comedy routine. Neither of those are very flattering, Jake. So the physical description of the Melonheads, I hate saying that, appears to have been influenced by a real illness. And that illness is called hydrocephalus. And hydrocephalus, that I've had to look up, is an abnormal buildup of cerebrospinal fluid deep within the brain. The excess fluid causes the ventricles within the brain to widen, putting harmful pressure on the brain's tissues. Hydrocephalus may be present at or shortly after birth, or may result over time from damage or injury. CSF protects and cushions the brain and spine. The body typically produces enough CSF each day to flow through the ventricles and bathe the brain and spinal cord before being reabsorbed into the bloodstream. Excess buildup of CSF can keep the brain from functioning properly and cause brain damage or even death. Now look at these signs in infants. Rapid increase in head size, unusually large head, bulge on the soft spot, vomiting, problems feeding, sleeplessness, irritability, eyes that are fixed downward and not able to turn outward, seizures, slowing or loss of development progress like walking or talking, headaches, blurred double vision, eyes that are not able to turn. Look at this. I'll link that article in the description down below. You can go and check it out for yourself. The whole point of that little exercise there is that there are real children that suffer this. Not feral, they're not cannibals, they haven't been mating in caves, they haven't developed razor-sharp teeth, and they haven't been hunting down Eliza Dukshu. Dukshu? Dakushu? I can't remember the name. You know, wrong term one, the good one. This legend has taken the appearance of disabled children and turned them into monsters, and he's throwing sweets at them, calling them Melonheads. And then he inserts his own jokes like Airheads. This isn't what he said he was going to do. He isn't examining the folklore critically. He's repeating the ugliest parts of this for entertainment.
We're getting activity now. I'm gonna use the SPI app. This uses AI, and it's basically like a way to text with the spirits. Like I'll talk into it, and then spirits can like formulate a response using AI or using their energy. I don't know how it works, but we're gonna test it out and see if we get any intelligent answers.
Spirits can formulate a response using AI or using their energy. I don't know how it works. They were his words, not mine. That right there should be the end of your experiment, Jake. If you don't know how it works, don't use it. Why shouldn't he use it? Well, if Jake doesn't understand how this device works or how this application works, how the AI works, how the programming is developed, then he can't distinguish between programmed responses, a random word language model, predefined word bank like the rest of them, whether the app is listening to him and then gathering information from what he has said. I mean, I don't know any of this. I'm just throwing it out into the world like he has, just from a more critical point of view, and he certainly wouldn't know if it was a ghost, would he? So Jake asked the app whether anything haunts the bridge, and the app, of course, says yes. It also says shadow, and this is immediately after Jake says, I saw a shadow behind a tree. So Jake, the investigator, has fed an AI-driven application the backstory, the location, alleged history, the identity of the alleged spirit, said the word shadow figure, and then the app confirms what he's saying. This app hasn't independently confirmed anything. He's spoon-feeding this app the answers to make this video. This is not communication with the dead, Jake. The closest thing I could attribute this to is paranormal predictive text. Maybe? Jake, to his defense, leaves the bridge saying he remains unconvinced. I wonder why. And that kind of sounds responsible, right? He's not got what he wanted, so he's unconvinced, except go and watch his video, and then watch the way he reacts when a device makes a noise, whether it be the REM pod or that AI app. It's just over the top, dramatic, like he believes it, and it's proof.
People allegedly see their infamous red eyes staring back at them from the tree lines surrounding the cemetery. No one knows exactly why they are here, however the cemetery is allegedly the burial site of Dr. Crow himself. The doctor who, according to the story, did unthinkable experiments to the children. If we can find a Dr. Crow that is actually buried in this cemetery, we might be able to prove that there is some truth to the story of the Melonheads. Alright guys,
Now down here you can see the King Memorial Cemetery. Very important that. Jake is at the King Memorial Cemetery, and Jake is explaining that Dr. Crow is supposedly buried there. And Jake says the actual words, if we can find a Dr. Crow that is actually buried in this cemetery, we might be able to prove that there is some truth to the story. Well, the grave marker won't say Dr. Crow, will it? The grave marker will just say Crow, because you don't have a first name. I don't have a first name. Off your research, all you would prove, even if you found a grave with the name Crow on there, is that somebody with the surname of Crow is buried there. Doesn't mean it's Dr. Crow. Doesn't mean it's the Dr. Crow. And on a larger scale, it wouldn't prove that there was an orphanage. It wouldn't prove that he ran the orphanage. It wouldn't prove that in this possibly make-believe orphanage that you're talking about, that he experimented on children there. It also doesn't confirm that he was murdered or he created some Ohio-based population of cannibal cryptids, you buffoon. But, to Jake's defense, Jake can't find him. And after failing to locate Crow's grave, Jake continues his paranormal investigation for what he calls further evidence of the Melonheads. And if you watch his video, his further evidence consists of mosquitoes, a snapping branch, an app saying shadow, and Jake not finding a grave in a cemetery. Further evidence is doing a lot of heavy lifting for a bunch of nothing. And there's a reason, Jake, why you can't find Dr. Crow's grave in this cemetery. There's a very simple reason why you can't find Dr. Crow's grave, being that Dr. Crow isn't buried in that cemetery. His full name was Dr. I'm going to probably say this wrong, so I'll put it on screen. Etienne Crow, or Etienne Crow? Etienne Pascal Crow. Noticeably, Crow is spelled with an E on the end. Jake. And Jake with a little bit of research. Revenge of the Melonheads, urban legend or real life? This will also be linked. You can read through this for yourself. It talks about the claims, etc. And then we get on to Mr. Crow and the questions of Mr. Crow. The real Dr. Crow. Was he a doctor? Was he married? And all of those questions' answers are yes. And do you know how we know that, Jake, the ghost hunter? It's because that interview is with Dr. Crow's great niece. Living family, Jake. Jake, the only thing you've managed to prove here is that Dr. Crow isn't buried in two cemeteries simultaneously. How will the paranormal community ever recover from this? But in reading that article and looking at the death dates, etc. of Dr. Crow, there's an even bigger problem arises. At the beginning of this video, Jake says that the alleged orphanage and the experiments were post-Second World War Ohio. But Crow died on the 9th of May 1945. Now, if you don't know your history, Jake, let me inform you a little bit. Dr. Crow died on the 9th of May 1945. The Second World War didn't end until the 8th of May 1945. A day. You're a day out. These experiments took place for years after, according to you and your folklore. And outside of Europe, in the Pacific, the Second World War was still raging on until September 1945. So according to your timeline, this post-World War II orphanage was not only built in a day, but these experiments, the doctor, all of it was all done in a single day, between the 8th and the 9th. That's a lot of work. So what I'm trying to say is that Crow couldn't have established this orphanage. He couldn't have conducted years' worth of cruel experiments. And he couldn't have been murdered by children at this orphanage that they later burned down because he died before the story. He was already dead when your story takes place. That's no sort of small minor discrepancy there, Jakey Pose. That's the villain dying before the opening credits have even started. Jake spends his time asking an app if it can prove the story. Jake, history disproves this story. So in reading the article, Dr. Crow is not a completely invented figure. And we'll get into why he's not a completely invented figure. Because his great niece remembers him and has researched the family history. And it's all in that article. She identified him as Etienne Pascal Crow, born in 1859, and she said the Crow and his wife Jessie were described as doctors, although she believed they may have been herbalists rather than conventional medical doctors. Crow lived at 6518 Superior Avenue, Cleveland. During the early 20th century, he purchased a cabin and property on Windsor Road, which is where Jake claims to be earlier in the video. The cabin had no running water or electricity and was used by Crow and his wife during summer weekends. This story has changed from an orphanage creating disfigured children to a summer log cabin. There was no orphanage, Jake. There was no medical institution. There is no documentation to prove that these experiments actually took place. The cabin was real. The doctor was real. Everything else has just grown around a doctor and a cabin in the woods. This is ridiculous, Jake. Now, Crow's niece does also go on in the article to say that the original family home did have a stone archway with the name Crow in it. Crow ending with an E, Jake. So where could this legend have come from? Well, the name is there. A big archway, a stone archway with the word Crow in there. So what I imagine has happened here is that teenagers have gone into the woods, seen this sort of dilapidated or potentially mostly demolished building, seen the stone or a broken slab of stone saying Crow, and then just made up this entire story that you were investigating for facts and missed every single one of them. But here's the truth. The family later found out the kids in the 60s and maybe a little bit later were actually partying in the derelict cabin or derelict house. And in the 60s or 70s, partying kids burnt it down. And these partying kids made up this story as a ghost tale, as a scary tale to scare each other. It was teenagers that burnt down a log cabin, not experimented upon children seeking out revenge from the afterlife. So Dr. Crow existed, but you spelt his name wrong. The secluded cabin has been replaced with a secluded orphanage. Teenagers that visited the property have been turned into younger children with deformities and disabilities that were cruelly treated and experimented upon. There's a bridge nearby, and these teenagers, while partying, set fire to a building. There have been fragments of reality that have just created this entire story that you have absolutely wasted your time investigating. And in the interview, Crow's great niece has talked about this institution. Some of the stories were worse, that he had an orphanage or something. You know, of course he didn't. It is just a myth, and this is how the myth keeps growing. Jake could have found this interview as easy as I did, in 2 clicks. Instead, he asked an app and a REM pod, and they directed him to the wrong fucking grave. And then Jake moves along to an EVP session with the DR60. Jake, I know you know who I am. You actually find me quite funny at times. I hope you find this funny, because that piece of shit you're holding in your hand you paid $1.50 for is worthless, you plank.
Session. So this is a recorder that can capture spirit voices. If theory number 2 is correct and they are spirits or ghosts, I'm gonna hopefully get their voice in this recorder. Ready? Okay, anyone who's out here, can you say hello? There's rumors of kids with large heads out here. Can you tell me what they're called into this recorder? Dr. Crow, are you buried here? Are you a melon head? Okay, you wanna listen to that?
Yeah.
Okay, anyone who's out here, can you say hello?
Do you hear that? It literally goes.
No, Jake. No, I don't. If you're new here, the DR60 is a recalled device. Well, it wasn't even recalled. They just stopped making it because it was shit. It's an unshielded microphone. It picks up the internal mechanisms. It fills in blank space for itself. The thing was dog shit. They stopped making it. There are rumours that it was recalled because it was talking to spirits. Not the case. There were also rumours that this thing was actually made illegal and banned because it talked to spirits. None of that is true. Why are these people still using them? That's right. False positives.
Wonders out here, can you say hello? Here, can you tell me what they're called into this recorder? Dr. Crow, are you buried here? Are you a Melonhead?
It's,
I am not.
yeah, exactly. The end is like,
That's right. Jake, apparently talking to the spirits of these children, says, "Are you a melonhead?" Then he replays some dog shit, incoherent sound that says, blah, blah, blah. It sounds like Twist from Korn. Jake interprets that somehow as, "I am not." And then Jake asks, is it an insult to be called a melonhead? Yes, Jake. Yes, it is. What you're actually doing there is using a derogatory term for a medical condition to assign to your cryptid or ghost story. You don't need a busted recorder to know this, Jake. You're being very, very insensitive. And the worst part is, if we were to look at what the DR60 said, it didn't, but if we were to believe it, then the DR60 actually has already concluded this investigation for you. Because the DR60, if it said, "I am not," somehow your broken recorder gave the ethical answer that you can't seem to find, Jake. That inaudible noise, that inaudible ghost, somehow had more social awareness than you, Jake. Maybe we should just let the ghosts host your episodes, because you're fucking horrible. Now, you can do a lot of research into the DR60 if you want, or you can go and check out Kenny Biddle at the Centre for Inquiry. He's broken this down extensively. It's my go-to article on why the DR60 is not producing ghost voices, provably why it doesn't produce ghost voices. It essentially boils down to auditory pareidolia, an unshielded microphone, a broken device from the 1990s. This is old tech that never worked in the first place. But hey, while we're at it, just in case you don't believe me, I'll leave this linked below. Cognitive Psychology from the Wiley Online Library. And this breaks down EVPs, and why EVPs are a load of shit. That's not what they say, it's what I'm saying. Jake then uses another app to gather evidence, and this app generates individual words.
run a Necrometer. This is an app that spirits can supposedly speak through and give us words. Can you communicate through this? Tell me who you are. I'm gonna place this.
Use the phone.
Use the phone? Is there any melonheads out here? Any kiddos?
That's right, he's using the Necrometer. Oh, it's a word bank, Jake. And now he gets some hits. He gets back and gravestone. But Jake's in a graveyard, so of course it's absolutely correct and right. Never mind that you have to give most of these phones access to your GPS, your microphone and your camera. And having the word gravestone in a ghost hunting app is a surefire hit. Because everyone you're talking to is fucking dead. Jake takes the word grave and back, and that's somehow this application directing him to Dr. Crow's grave. Jake, who influenced those words? How has the application selected them? Is it through the internal sensors? Is it through the XY axis calibration? It's bollocks, mate. Has the location data influenced the app? How many irrelevant words were said that you've cut out of your video? I'm not saying you have, but did you? And if this is a test, would you even conclude that this is a failed test because it's inherently flawed from the off? So in that clip you'll hear that the app says use the phone. Incredible that a mobile phone application says use the phone. But Jake sees a decorative mobile phone on a grave and he has to link them because of course he does, like, oh my god, the app said, fuck off. None of this is a controlled experiment, it's just ad-libbing. It's not ad-libbing, it's mad-libbing.
To search for the Melonheads, and we're gonna go there right now. At this spot, there are actual documented stories and sightings of Melonheads. The third and final location where Melonheads have been seen is also the most infamous, Weissner Road. It is here that almost all of the confirmed Melonhead sightings took place. In 2008, a blogger named Alyssa Morrow went driving with her friends down Weissner Road to look for the infamous Melonheads. To her surprise, they saw a strange creature that did did the unthinkable. She described it as about 5'7", wearing tattered brown pants being held together by corn husks, a stained white shirt with ear holes and extremely large eyes. Amazingly, the creature kept pace with their car at about 45 to 50 miles per hour, chasing them down the road alongside a ditch before vanishing into the woods as they turned a corner.
Really? What a load of bollocks. So Jake announces that at this spot there are actual documented stories and sightings of melonheads, and then he says that almost all of the confirmed melonhead sightings took place here. Those words, documented and confirmed, well, they're impressive, aren't they? But for Jake, documented means somebody posted a story online or a blog. Confirmed, in this instance, seems to mean that Jake read a story and went, I like it. And Jake obviously brings up somebody called Alyssa Morrow. And according to Jake, Alyssa saw a creature approximately 5 feet 7 inches tall wearing a brown torn trousers held together with corn husks and a stained white t-shirt, and the creature ran alongside the car at 45 to 50 miles an hour. Except that's not Alyssa Morrow's story, is it, Jake? And so, Jakey Poos, I found Alyssa's blog. Melon hens in Kirkland, Ohio. The most common story behind these little mutant creatures, lovely, is the Dr. Crow, blah, 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 blah. This is the bullshit history. 3 to 4 feet tall with a large head and glowing eyes. Well, I've got my own views on this. I went to Wisner Road in Kirtland and proved this was real or fake. My aunt drove, her friend Megan, my brothers, and their friend came along. We got lost in the area of Mitchell's Mill and Wisner, but we kept seeing shadows in the woods, and when we came along a black gate in the woods of Wisner Road, we all had a gut feeling. The kind of feeling that tells you that you aren't about to be in a good situation. Well, my brothers and their friend thought it would be cool to make them not seem like sissies to get out of the car. Well, they walked down a little side road. A few moments later, my aunt and I got scared, so we beeped the horn several times. They ran back to the car, all diving in. They claimed that there was something that ran across the road. It suddenly got extremely foggy outside. Momentarily, my brother Keith realised he lost his phone while we were running back to the car. We were in no mood, and none of us had the courage to go back. Wait, that's it. That's it. Jake, I don't mean to pedantic here, but that was Alyssa Morrow's story. You named her, I found her story. And let me tell you what she didn't describe was a creature running from 40 to 50 miles an hour. She spotted nothing that was 5 feet 7 inches tall. She saw nothing wearing brown trousers tied together with corn. What she actually described was fog, shadows, people scaring themselves. You know, nothing like the story you told. And here you will see the melon heads of Kirtland on Believing the Bizarre. And if we scroll down, what are the melon heads, etc., versions of the melon heads, urban legends, urban legend of the melon heads number 2, historical encounters. Let's keep scrolling down. Somebody traveling in 1964, seen something scurrying off with a bulbous head. They slow down to get a better look. But if we get here to encounter number 3, my name is Tony, not Alyssa, and I recently experienced with the Melonheads. It was October the 5th, 2001. My stepfather, mum, stepbrother driving down Chillicothe Road, might be misspelled, in Chardon. We were driving down towards the same area for almost an hour, no luck. Came across a stretch of road, looked out the window and saw him, a Melonhead. He or it was running alongside to the ditch. Since the ditch was too high to jump over, he was coming close. Almost 45 to 50 mile an hour. The Melonhead was keeping up with us. It didn't look anything like it did in the stories. It looked the same height as me, 5'7", wearing brown pants which were ripped up and where the seams would be. It was held together by corn husk. He wore a white shirt with red stains all over it. His head was swelled up. So what Jake has done is taken Tony's monster from a different area and placed it into Alyssa's story to match up with his bullshit investigation. Tisk tisk, Jakey Pose. And this is absolutely spectacular because Jake set out with the intention of seeing how, if this story is real, or how an urban legend developed. Well done, Jake. You've just developed the folklore story yourself. You have just added to it. The Melonheads haven't reproduced, Jake. Idiots keep telling bullshit stories. You are an idiot that's just told a bullshit story. Now, even if Jake had gotten this right and said that this was Tony's story and I found Tony's story, it's still not proof, because there's no police reports, there's no newspaper reports, There's no video evidence, there's no photographic evidence. There's no proof of a creature, no footprints, no samples, nothing. It is just some guy on an online forum telling a horror story amongst a bunch of other horror stories based around the same folklore. This is an anecdote. You're treating it as document. It's not. It's not a confirmed sighting that you've claimed it to be. For example, I've read books where Santa Claus is very, very real. He's not. Just because it's written down doesn't make it a true account. Jake also points out, it seems somewhat credible, that Usain Bolt only ran at 27 miles an hour, which is an incredible feat in itself. And therefore, a creature running at 45 to 50 would be extraordinary. Fucking damn right it would. It'd be terrifying. So how does Jake prove all of this, or attempt to prove all of this? He drives to the area and looks out of the window. Why didn't scientists think of this? I bet the scientific community is furious. Like, why didn't we drive there and do the following? Jake also then tells a story of a guy called Jeff and his injured dog. And Jeff reportedly claimed that as a 10-year-old he found his dog bleeding and saw a pale figure with a large head in the woods. And that account does appear online. I found it earlier, I can't find it again, I don't care. Jeff may have found an injured animal. He may also have remembered seeing a strange shape towards the edge of the woods. What we don't have is a veterinary report of a dog being mutilated by a mutated, deformed, made-up child. What this equates to is a dog injured near the woods has several very, plausible explanations. Several plausible explanations that don't involve a mutated medical cannibal. Certainly shouldn't be your first port of call. He does a spirit box, we're skipping that completely because he's just using it to enforce his own beliefs and being like, are you a melonhead? Are you a melon? Yeah, it's melonhead. Melonhead, melon. Oh. But, ladies and gentlemen, it's not all doom and gloom because Jake debunks at the end of this video. I know. Shock horror. Jake the Ghost Hunter debunks. And you can probably tell by the twinkle in my eye that there's something there as well.
Okay, well, the car lights turned off and now this is a lot creepier. You got some weird voices, but nothing definitive, guys. There's definitely something odd going on out here, though. There are absolutely no records of Dr. Crow or any orphanage ever being in this area. We also debunked the theory about his grave being in the cemetery earlier, so maybe this entire story was made up and simply got engraved into local lore. However, that doesn't explain the plethora of...
First, he admits that the voices were nothing definitive. True. And I think he's talking about the spirit box and EVP sessions there. Then he says that something odd is definitely going on. Well, wow. You recovered quickly there to make sure this is a paranormal video and not a nothing happened. Then he makes his major error, and some of you guys already know exactly what I'm about to say. He says the words... There are absolutely no records of Dr. Crow or any orphanage ever being in this area. True to a degree, there is no reliable evidence of an orphanage existing, because it didn't. But Dr. Crow, with an E, absolutely existed. His full name was Etienne Pascal Crow, with an E. His great niece is documented online discussing him in great detail. I have linked it in the description down below. And I didn't exactly go hard on the research for this one. But his niece didn't just tell a story of Dr. Crow, she provided his home address. She provided his wife's name, his first and middle name, the connection to Wisner Road that you were on. She even provided his actual date of birth, his date of death, and exactly where he was buried. Jake, you reached two conclusions at the end of this. One of them was a debunk, and you got it completely wrong. The one true element to any of this is the one bit you said is completely fake. How did you manage this? This is a balls up of epic proportions. Jake then says that he debunked the theory about the grave because they couldn't find him in the King Memorial Cemetery. Well, you wouldn't have, because Dr. Crow was actually buried in Lakeview Cemetery. You didn't debunk the grave. You were in the wrong graveyard, you tool. This is like searching for the grave of Elvis Presley at your local Walmart, or for us in the UK, Asda, and then because you can't find it, say the supermarkets don't exist. This is how big a fuck up you've made, yeah? Jake also signs off with, there's no historical evidence for the orphanage, but that does not explain the plethora of sightings or all of the paranormal activities that were captured on that night. So let me just look at my notes here and quickly review the paranormal activity you claimed. A branch snapped in the woods, mosquitoes exist, road lights briefly look like red eyes, but Jake did write that wrong and he was like, they're actually road lights. Distant animals made noises, a hanging object moved, an app generated cemetery-related words whilst you're in a cemetery. A radio device, the spirit box, provided radio samples. Shock horror. Who saw that one come in? And Jake at one point did see a moth and called it Mothman. It was said with humour. I think. And let's be fair, the moth is the only creature that is substantiated in this episode. It was terrible. The plethora of sightings, well, what were they, Jake? They were internet anecdotes and forums and spooky stories people are telling each other online, and you even attributed them to the wrong people. Now, you rightly pointed out the orphanage probably never existed. Therefore, none of this ever existed. That orphanage is the entire foundation of this ghost story, and you know that it didn't exist. You've disproved every stitch of this and wasted your time doing it, and the only facts that you got wrong. Because no orphanage means no abused children. No children, no identified deaths. No identified deaths means that there's no historical reason to call anything that you encountered, heard, or created with apps the spirits of children that died at the hands of Dr. Crow, who was in fact a real man that you, like Selena Spooky Boo and all the others before you, are adding crimes to. A real innocent person getting crimes dumped on them after they've died. So Jake set out to find out if the Melonheads were real. What Jake actually proved was folklore. Folklore mutates by people just bullshitting their way through stories, and Jake inadvertently proved it by getting the story wrong. There was a real man called Etienne Pascal Crow that Jake said didn't exist because Jake got lost. That's the basics of it. He did own a cabin on this road, not an orphanage. There was a stone with the name Crow on there, and maybe because it was broken, the E was missing. I'm guessing, yeah, but at least I'm being fucking honest about guessing, Jake. But yeah, it was teenagers visiting the area, burnt down a lodge, a wood cabin, not an orphanage with mutated children that murdered and killed and burnt. It's all bollocks, Jake. So do please let me know if you like this little breakdown, because you can go and investigate folklore, but you've got to research it properly. There's a couple of folklore tales near me that I've been researching to go to these areas to tell the stories, maybe conduct an investigation whether it's real or not, but at least I'll be honest about it. Jake got everything wrong here, and the bits where he's like, I have debunked, you didn't. You just didn't research properly, or you mixed people up. Terrible. Jake, you keep posting about debunking or attempting to debunk on Facebook and YouTube. Please stop calling it debunking. You are terrible at it. Now, Jake does have a good sense of humour when it comes to debunkers. He's interacted with me a little bit on Facebook. I've interacted with him a little over there. He seems to take it in his stride, and maybe if he does watch this, he'll learn that maybe just use Google a little bit more before you go out and state things as fact. Because unknowingly, you have assigned murders to a real life person. Maybe you didn't realise because of poor research, so you thought there's no harm in passing this tale on because the doctor never existed. But when he did exist, and when he's still got relatives that are alive and in living memory, what you're doing there is very immoral, whether you realise it or not. Let it be a lesson to you, Jake. Look at that. Learning from debunkers. Maybe he will be better than any of the others I've called out on this type of stuff and actually address it and right those wrongs. I look forward to it, Jake, because you do seem a little bit more open to us than the others. Much love to you all. Beardo out.